Hello, my name is Andrew Reimer, and over the course of the next 7 minutes, I will bring forward evidence to you to suggest that the internet can, in some cases, be very addictive. But before I do that, I would like to begin with a few points of clarification on what I mean when I'm saying that the internet is addictive, because that's a very broad statement. Firstly, I'd like to say I'm not referring to the whole internet. It's a large place. There is a lot of material on it. I am not referring to databases or utility services or anything of that nature when I'm saying that the internet is addictive. What I'm saying is that there's a particular component to the internet, things like social media, news sites, gaming platforms, and these have been shown that in some cases, in some people, they are very, very addictive, or the people who associate with them are displaying very addictive behaviors in some respects. I'm also not trying to allude to the idea that the internet is addicting in all cases of all people. That would be a heinous statement, a statement that's clearly false, and it would be irrepresentative of the argument that's being made. Rather, what I'm trying to make the case of is that internet addiction is like all addictions, that there is a certain portion of the population who psychology tells us by a variety of factors they have a predisposition to becoming addicted to things. And that predisposition results in some cases that they develop this fantasization of the internet, and that fantasization can only be described as an addiction. So the first and most important question to ask is what evidence exists to support this? And that's a good question. Well, there have been a lot of studies conducted into this over the past 20 or so years, and many of them have shown that people who spend an excess amount of time on the internet, some 6 hours or greater per day, have similar behaviors and similar patterns in their demeanor to people who have known alcoholism or substance abuse or gambling addictions or any number of different forms of addiction that we know of. Furthermore, when we define and describe and detect addictions in people, we look for certain conditions or certain aspects in their personality. Things like tolerance, withdrawal, dependency, or social withdrawal too is another big one. And when we look at people who we believe are addicted to the internet, we see those same symptoms and same patterns in their behavior. Another incredibly important factor to consider is that when we observe these behaviors, they're not being observed solely in the US, but they're being observed in the EU, in China, in Japan, South Korea, all across the world. They're being observed. So it's clear that this is not something that is particular to a specific region or a specific population, but rather it's a global thing that affects humans pretty much evenly. Now, a good counter-argument to this would be, well, people use the internet all the time. Personal use, work and business, to communicate with friends and family, and, well, even to just watch a movie on a Friday night. That's all fine uses of the internet, and that doesn't necessarily mean that someone's addicted, right? And that's a good point. There are plenty of people who spend a large amount of their day working and dealing with aspects of the internet, and they don't necessarily show any of those addictive behaviors. But the APA, who publishes the DSM-V, or the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, has had inquiries for several years now trying to get internet addiction classified as a mental disorder. And the purpose of this is typically just to promote a further understanding of it and to be able to help develop treatment plans and practices to help people who suffer from it. But that alludes to something. And what that alludes to is that, yes, the internet is a very valuable tool, potentially one of the most valuable tools that humanity has ever developed. But for every right use of a tool, there is a wrong one. And it's easy to see in this case that there are behaviors and tendencies in people that cannot be described as healthy. Take, for example, the case of a 32-year-old in Hong Kong who, after a 73-hour gaming marathon, collapsed and was pronounced dead of a cardiac arrest. And this happened in January of 2015. It is evidently clear that that is not healthy behavior. And keep in mind that this case is not particularly limited. This has happened many times over several years to an abundance of people. I recall cases in 2012, 2013, and another one earlier in 2015 than this. So the question becomes, well, what do you do about it? There are many potential solutions, but which ones work? And the answer to that question is not so simple. Some previously named countries like China and South Korea, have tried to put limitations on internet use, regulate it. And that's had effectiveness to some extent, but regulation rarely deals with psychological problems. And so rather what most psychologists believe the proper action to take is to handle it like we handle all addictions. We handle addictions with proper treatment, understanding of what causes it, and practices used to help people understand their flaws with it and move past it. And in this particular case of addiction, in the form of internet addiction, most psychologists agree that this is our best possible option going forward to deal with it. Thank you, and have a good night.